Hello everyone. So, I've been wanting to record a video on this topic for quite some time, but it is quite a big topic. So, I think parts of me have been putting it off simply because whenever I start talking about it, I go off on tangents. Yeah, and it is quite an emotive topic as well. So, I think the reticence has been to not start in case I get lost somewhere along the way. But then I realized that what can go wrong when you speak about something that you're passionate about, and it's coming from a positive place. And it's something that I really feel is important, to share with people. So I'm going to park my reservations and come to you with this video. So let's see how this goes. So I guess this video is about the difference between self-regulation, between regulating and relating. Yeah. And how these two things are different and when you would use one over the other. Excuse me. So I think we are often met with quite a lot of information about self-regulating. So regulating and self-regulating refers to meeting an emotion or an experience in a way that reduces the intensity of it. Yeah. Self-regulating practices, there's so many different things. You can do breath work, tapping, resource tapping, going for a walk, dancing, singing, you name it. Yeah, so all of these strategies that are out there, a lot of them are geared up for self-regulating. This is where you meet your emotions yourself and you do something to reduce their intensity, or to at least acknowledge them in a way that reduces the distress. The focus of that a lot of the time is on the self, hence it's called self-regulating. And for the most part, it's a really important skill. Yeah, it's really important for us all to know and understand that there are options for self-regulating, especially if we don't have a very strong support network around us or if we're caught off guard in our emotions. It's really helpful in healthy part of our emotional health, our sort of mental health, to know how to self-regulate, to know how to meet those needs in a supportive way. Where it can get a little bit tricky though is when the emotion that we feel comes from what is called, I guess in the psychology field, it's an attachment wound. Yeah, when the pain or the distress that we feel was created in relationship to something or someone else. And I guess the emotion that comes to mind, or the experience that comes to mind that's most representative of that, is loneliness. Yeah, a sense of deep abandonment and rejection. It can feel very existential. It can feel almost life-threatening, and when we experience that sense of loneliness, we can really truly feel disconnected, completely disconnected from ourselves, completely disconnected from everyone around us. It can feel like nobody understands us. Nobody understands what we're going through. There's no one here. Yeah, there's no one here to look after us. And these feelings can also manifest as rejection, feeling truly rejected by somebody or something, or even an entire society or community, or really just left behind and abandoned, just forgotten about. So these are more relational emotions. These are emotions that are born out of traumas and events which really shook our relational world. Relational meaning in relationship to others. Yeah. So some examples are of when that happens is if we have a caregiver or somebody who's important to us in childhood who just leaves, yeah, who actually physically leaves, abandons us either through a death or they're just not present, they're just not around physically for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be out of, negative intentions. It might be an absent parent who had no choice but to work all the time. Yeah. We could also perhaps have been in an environment where the people around us were present, like physically present, but they were emotionally absent. Yeah, so they were there, but not really there. And that could be for a number of reasons, perhaps due to their own mental health struggles, not knowing or understanding or feeling able to connect emotionally. There may have been some depression. It's when a parent is depressed, they're not able to always respond to the emotional needs of their child because their own emotions and their own emotional world is depressed. It's quite literally a depression of emotions. There may have been substance misuse, so substances, if there's a caregiver or the important people around you are using substances, then again, that can lead to a rupture in the relationship, in the relational attachment between you and the caregiver or the person who's important. Tangent. Essentially, these experiences, these painful emotions, linked to this relational trauma, can feel a little bit harder and a bit more complex to be with. And when it comes to self-regulating, the idea of being with, on your own, alone, with a feeling of loneliness can feel really inflammatory to that part. Yeah, it can feel really aggravating and agitating, because we already feel disconnected, we already feel abandoned, we already feel lonely, and then we're being asked to sit alone with our aloneness. Yeah, be alone with our loneliness. This is where self-regulatory practices like meditation and breathwork can feel very, very tricky, because a lot of it is about detachment and disconnection. You're simply asked to just sit there and observe the emotion, and that can feel very painful to a young, and they're more often than not very young parts, these lonely, abandoned, rejected parts. To be met with detachment and disconnection and observation can feel really quite distressing, I'm not saying meditation and breathwork doesn't work for those parts. It absolutely does for some people, but for some it doesn't. And I guess that's why I'm recording this video. So let me explain, I guess, why it might feel distressing to sit and to meditate and to just be with and to just observe these emotions, and why that might not be what they need. And it really comes down to acknowledgement and validation. So when we're babies, when we're children, and even when we're adults, it's part of human nature that when we come to somebody with our emotions, what we're looking for is some kind of recognition, some kind of acknowledgement of, oh, we exist. They see I'm upset, they see I'm distressed, and they've let me know. Yeah. And usually that happens through some kind of facial expression, a look, a body movement, maybe a bringing in, towards comfort. So you'll see this a lot between if you're a parent yourself, your child will look to you for recognition, for a response. Yeah, just to kind of see whether you're there. And that's really healing. It sort of lets the child know, I see you, you matter, I acknowledge you, we're in this together. You're not alone. Yeah, you're not alone in this experience. And I think it was in like don't quote me on this, sometime in the sort of 70s and 80s, Mary Ainsworth, who is like a researcher and psychologist, perhaps it was even in the 60s, earlier than that. She was a researcher and psychologist, and they did an experiment called Still Face. Now, I don't know whether it's still available to find on YouTube, but it's quite a distressing, and I don't think you'd be able to get away with doing this research now, perhaps, but it was an experiment about what happens, to children when they're met with a still face, so this kind of expression from their caregiver. And in this video, essentially what you see is the child becoming really quite distressed, really quite uncertain and frightened when they're coming to their caregiver with a need, with an emotion, with an experience, and they're just being met with this. Yeah. And this is kind of what it can feel like for us sometimes, with our emotions, perhaps with our experiences. If when we're distressed or we're feeling abandoned, rejected, lonely, and again, it could be any emotion, right? Any emotion that feels pertinent to you. If we meet it with this detached, disconnected, kind of still face, which we can sometimes be encouraged to do with self-regulating or meditating, that can feel really aggravating, really inflammatory, and really invalidating to those parts. Yeah, the same way as it would if you came to somebody distressed and they just met this, you were just met with this, that would feel distressing. And actually, I can feel it now. I've had moments where I've gone to people with emotion and have been met with that, and now I find that distressing. It's like, I can feel that invalidation. And so that can happen with us as well. We can accidentally and inadvertently, and not meaning to, invalidate ourselves. So when it comes to these kinds of emotions, what I call for, what I encourage is, rather than regulating, is to relate. Yeah, relationship and relating over regulating. So rather than sitting through the emotion and processing through the emotion, is to be with it alongside it, and to provide that reciprocity for yourself. So this is about getting into a relationship with your emotion. Yeah. So I guess this is very akin and very reflective of internal family systems. So IFS, which talks a lot about parts, and it's a really beautiful framework for helping us acknowledge we have different parts and different areas, and that actually we can learn to communicate with them. And relating over regulating can be so soothing and actually help us rewire and heal those deeper attachment wounds, So it's really important that we know that it's an option for us, that actually we can relate rather than regulate, especially if self-regulating isn't working. So 15 minutes nearly. How do we relate to our emotions? How do we relate to feelings of loneliness and abandonment and rejection and all those other tricky experiences? Well, I guess we provide it with what it needs, and a lot of the time is just reassurance to know that somebody is there. Yeah. And maybe I'll do a couple of videos of a few strategies, but really simply, you can just open a dialogue with yourself and go, oof. So I instinctively put my hands on my chest because, who doesn't want physical contact? Yeah. I mean, maybe you don't, but for a lot of us, this physical contact is so reassuring. And what you're doing with that is you're letting yourself know, I'm here. I recognize you. I hear you. Okay. I feel this loneliness. I feel this abandonment. I feel this rejection, and it really hurts. I'm here for you. Yeah. I see you and I hear you and I'm listening. Yeah. And the hug, right? The self hug can be so powerful. Yeah, so powerful. And you're just letting your body know, I'm here with you. You're not alone, because that's really all these parts want to hear. For all my somatic therapist friends out there will hopefully enjoy this one. Rocking, this kind of movement or a swaying is so, and I always pair it with a hug. But this kind of movement is so soothing. When a baby is distressed, what is the first thing we do? We pick up and rock it. And that's because that rocking sensation is naturally soothing to the nervous system. Yeah. So rocking, hugging, gentle touch, reassurance, I'm with you, I love you, I care about you, and you know what, I'm gonna stick by you. Yeah, I'm not gonna leave you. You're not gonna be on your own. I'm not gonna abandon you. Yeah. And if it's really painful, and there's tears and there's distress, then that's okay. Yeah, you're not just sitting there just watching it, completely disconnected. You're responding to it. You're going, oh my goodness, that really hurts. That's so painful. Yeah. But the key here is that you're relating. Yeah, you're relating to it. You're giving it acknowledgement. It's there. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. I'm here for you. And you're responding to it. Yeah. Other things that can help is, of course, just writing about it, writing to it. Again, it's this relational bit. If you do have somebody you love and trust, if you have a pet, pets are great for this, yeah, for relating. It's not self-regulating when you have a pet, it's relating. It's relating, regulating. Grab a cat, a dog, a hamster, whatever. Let them be with you and just allow yourself to lean into that. If you have a partner, even if the words don't come, or a friend, I really encourage you. It's so deeply nourishing to those parts if you can be in relationship with an other. Yeah. A safe other. People who will, even if they don't have the right words, let them sit beside you and maybe hold your hand. Yeah. If there is no one like this in your life, and for some of us, there is no one. You can go into your imagination. This is so wonderful. You have this incredible brain, this incredible, I think it's back here, this creative parts that really allow you to use your imagination and conjure up the most perfect person to be there with you. The most perfect person who will just know the right thing to say. And this is where my videos on resource tapping are helpful. You can really imagine that caregiving figure, that person who is really going to soothe you. And it can be an actual person, it can be a fictional person, it can be a spiritual guide, it can be something magical and majestic, it can be a protector, it can be a nurturing figure. Just allow yourself to bring up something or someone to give you that comfort. But this is, I guess this is it. It is about this reciprocity. It is about this being in relationship. And it takes practice, yeah. It takes a lot of practice. But it is deeply healing. When people say, again, there's so many ways and so many terminologies out there. It's like, what do they mean when people say to show up for yourself? How do I show up for myself? Not to abandon yourself, like, stand by yourself, back yourself, be in your corner. This is kind of it. This is like when I'm in pain, when I feel lonely, when I feel rejected and abandoned, I step into being the thing that I need for me. Yeah. I treat myself well. I treat myself right. I treat myself kindly and compassionately. That's what it means to show up for yourself. And when you can learn to do that, when you can learn to relate to those deeper parts, those deeper pains in that way, like it listens, like it heals. It really, really does heal. But it does take practice. So, 20 minutes, guys. If you're still with me, well done. I feel like giving you all a hug. And you know what the other thing is? Like, these videos, I'm here with you, okay? This can be a relational thing. We can do this together. If these videos help, like if just knowing that another person is aware of these pains, another person knows what it feels like to feel so deeply and chronically lonely and abandoned and so existentially alone, sometimes that can be enough. So maybe perhaps this can be a way of you co-relating. Yeah. Okay. So I guess in short, self-regulating isn't the only option. We can relate, not just self-regulate. We can be with emotions, alongside them, for them, with them. We don't just have to process through them. We don't have to meditate. We can, and it works for a lot of people. Certainly it does for me with certain emotions. Practicing detachment and disconnection and observation is really important, but sometimes what's needed is acknowledgement and validation and relating and response and reciprocity. Let me know you're here. Let me know you're here for me. Let me know you see me. And we can give that to ourselves through words, body movements, actions, seeking out connection. Yeah. Really, really important. I guess I could just do another video on this, but really important when it comes to addiction. People say the opposite of addiction is connection, and that connection can absolutely start with our connection to ourselves. How do I respond to this feeling of emptiness, which often we then try to fill with something, some kind of void, some kind of consumption of something, alcohol, food, drugs, toxic relationships, phones, internet. Yeah. How can I relate to this emotion in a way that makes me feel connected? Yeah, how can I respond to it rather than reaching for something outside of myself? Yeah, okay, so thank you for hearing this, and I really hope that it resonates with some of you. As always, please send questions. I welcome them. Yeah, thank you for listening, and I think we're all doing the best that we can, I really do believe that. So wishing you all a really lovely day.